improved Furman Boulevard and an access pathway on the other side. So we're not solving a problem. Versus the at-grade solution, which is what the Waterfront Coalition has advocated for. And there were two alternatives of an at-grade solution put in the final plan. One had a boulevard that went all the way up to the Skyway and then kind of split off around the edge so that one side went one direction and the other one went kind of in reverse. And the other, which was called the hybrid alternative, had essentially a boulevard going up to the base of the Skyway, and then it switched everything onto the water side from there on up to make things easier so that it was two-way traffic instead of having the split zone. But both of those alternatives were equally explored in the EIS process right up until the final, and then and all included this at-grade option. The at-grade option is really important because it provides direct access to TIF Nature Preserve. It maintains clear access across the roadway so that you know where you are in relationship to the lake. It provides a clear connection to places like Tift, where you just have an intersection instead of having to get on and off an on-ramp. Same thing happening for the Freezer Queen complex. You'll have to get off the roadway in one section and double back under the improvement alternative. And one of the important pieces that Riverkeeper was concerned about is it allows for the potential to restore, to the maximum extent possible, wetlands within this outer harbor area, the places that hold our water, to restore the hydrology to Tift Nature Preserve, which is being choked right now by roadways. It is literally, if you're there in the summer, dying of lack of water, even though it is the very ecosystem that's preventing a lot of historic contamination from making its way into our waterways. And so we have to make sure that we kind of restore those places, and this doesn't make it possible. This is the boulevard option, and just for those of you who haven't seen it, this is, I think we're here at Ridge. This goes over the Union Shift Canal. This is Tiff Street at-grade solution. Under the improvement alternative, you're still having this elevated embankment, all kinds of issues there. When you get to Tiff Nature Preserve, a clear access road right across the street to the place on the outer harbor where we're likely to see some development nodes. Another one here at Ohio Street, so you could just drive right into Freezer Queen in that development node complex. It's a much simpler roadway system. There are no over and underpasses. It's a much cleaner piece and has flexibility to grow with us over time, because the outer harbor is a site that does not have a development plan. Despite our vision, it is really not been, there's no final proposal for it, and the Opus Uniland Group, on its own weight, terminated their proposal in 2007. Without any public opposition, without any other piece, they pulled out of the deal. So where are we in this process? Having gone through several years of talking to our elected officials, talking to the DOT, saying remove this barrier, the DOT, and having them show us alternatives that brought everything down to grade. Last winter they pulled out a plan again that said, no, we're leaving it at grade. And so they had issues, and actually I didn't show the illustration, but from the section at the outer harbor going out to the Coast Guard station, they're actually increasing the roadway height by 20 to 25 feet. So in engineering documents, you can look at the at-grade drawing, and then you actually watch the roadway go up over so that they can meet it at grade, which makes, we're still trying to figure out why you need to do that at Times Beach Nature Preserve, which just had a wonderful restoration. So we are having, the group, many of us have participated in this process. There's been this whole commitment to do things at grade. It was changed at the last minute with on the basis of worrying about snowdrift and animal accidents and cost. Now, we all understand the cost piece, but animal accidents and snowdrift, I think we'd have to close most roadways in the southern tier if that was really our decision-making process for roads.
Yeah, not to interrupt, but the cost side is a misnomer also. If you look at spending $55 million temporarily, it's not a cost. It's not a less costly solution.
Right. So we have been working and trying desperately to get our elected leaders, to get the DOT to really reinstate the other alternatives that they had explored in the EIS process. They refused, And we were waiting also on their disclosure of what was their final environmental review document. And they never filled it out. They never submitted their paperwork. And so we kept waiting and waiting, hoping that they were going to do the right thing. And because there's a presumption under the law that the government is going to do the right thing until it's pretty clear that they're not going to do it. And so when they issued contracts, we realized that they had no intention of filing some really important documents. First, under the Environmental Review Act, the state did not complete necessary paperwork to say that they completed their review of the project. When you have a federal project and a state environmental review, a lot of times they do a coordinated review, but that doesn't mean that the state gives up its legal obligation to actually submit a finding statement on the project that said, we looked at all of these issues and came to our own conclusion. And the state hasn't filled in that paperwork. The second piece was that they went through this tremendous change between all of the draft pieces and the final design, which we believe means that they should go back and show the community what it means when they elevate the road by 20 feet, what it means when they leave up that embankment so that they can have the review process. The second piece was one that a lot of people haven't looked at before. I hope I'm not going too long. I've gone really long, haven't I? Oh, I'm sorry. Was the Niagara River Greenway. And this one I can say in 2 seconds. The DOT is on the Niagara River Greenway Commission, and they wrote the Niagara River Greenway Plan, which is really clear about eliminating roadway barriers. And they were also supposed to do, under the law, a consistency review of this project with the Greenway Plan. We asked them when they were doing it. We did so in public meetings, at the Greenway Commission meetings, and they have never completed that review. And so they just didn't do their work, and so they need to complete the process if they're going to do the roadway properly. So I'm sorry I went so far over.
No, it's okay. I feel bad relegating each of these important topics in such a short amount of time, but unfortunately that's the situation we're in now. So Harvey, I'm going to give you 12 minutes to talk about the Peace Bridge, and then we'll do questions for the remainder.
Okay, and I talk really fast, so I can pack a lot in there. 12 minutes?
12 minutes.
All right. And this clicker thing's interesting. You kept pressing the clicker button, he kept pressing the button, so I don't know if it was like a little buzzer on his thing. But every time she clicked it,
yeah.
Okay. I'm going to assume that, because I've got 12 minutes, most everyone here understands the basics behind what's being proposed for the Peace Bridge, the 45-acre plaza. We look at it as a truck plaza. The PBA says it's not a truck plaza. It's a truck plaza. There, my presentation's over. It's a truck plaza. I'm going to assume that most everyone here has a general idea. 88 homes are being threatened with eminent domain and to be knocked down, and there's a lot of neighborhood impact behind that in what we would consider a fairly important historic neighborhood. So kind of the basis, without getting into all the details of how it got to this point. Anthony asked me to talk about the impact to the neighborhood, and I want to talk about the impact to the neighborhood, but also talk about the impact on the city of Buffalo if we do what's being proposed to this neighborhood, which I think is the bigger question. Right now, the way it's been framed, mostly by the PBA, is that it's an issue of whether it's okay to impact this neighborhood versus our needs for this transportation infrastructure. And I don't think that's a proper framing for this, because we're not just looking at destroying a historic neighborhood. We're looking at, if we impact this neighborhood the way we're potentially going to impact it, I think it has a pretty serious negative impact on Buffalo's future, and I want to talk about that a little bit. The neighborhood itself is certainly important. Anybody who knows the Columbus Parkway neighborhood, it's really one of the nicest neighborhoods on the west side. We're unfortunately saddled with a negative perception of the west side. You know, everything west of Main Street is, expendable, is a perception that a lot of people hold. A lot of people. I'm still surprised, regardless of the impact that we've made on the west side, how many people really look at the west side as potentially expendable, especially since we really need this transportation infrastructure that's going to drive economic development. And if you listen to the PBA, we just had a presentation they did at the Squash and Tennis Club. We're following them around everywhere as they give a presentation these days. So we actually followed them to the Squash and Tennis Club to watch their presentation, and they were talking about the billions of dollars of economic, direct, local, economic impact that comes in across the